Um, what's your feeling about Kanye West statements about black people were here for 400 years and slavery sounding like a choice? Being here for 400 years and he said that slavery sounds like a choice.
Right. Yeah.
And his whole support of Donald Trump.
I saw the TMZ interview. So let me just start off with the 400 years statement. It's important that we learn how to stay in our lanes. There are people who they study black history. They know the truth of the circumstances surrounding African Americans in this country. They know what we've been through in detail. They know the stuff that a lot of people don't even teach. You know, so if you know this, a statement like that will never be made. You know, and part of the impact of what it does as a public figure, you have to understand that people are still listening to you regardless of whether you want to be a role model or not. People are going to listen to what you say because you have the floor. The fact you're on TV, you know, so he has to be careful to manage his words correctly, and with that, you have to manage your thoughts correctly. You know, it's not about you just expressing your free opinion, because you do have the right to do that, but at the same time, you know, you can't get mad when intellects rebuttal your statements, because they have the right to rebuttal your statements because you made a public statement that was inaccurate, or the opinion wasn't validated by any truth at all. You know, sometimes you just have to make sure that, okay, I'm going to make this statement, but this is the validation for my statement, or this is the proof that you can understand why I have this opinion about us being in a situation for 400 years and it's a choice. You know, none of that came out. So therefore, you can't get mad when people call you a fool because you sound like a fool. You sound like a fool. You know what I mean? And this is part of the problem. Like, you know, the TMZ, other journalists that dug into him, that said that you sound like because you're not real, because you're making statements that you're picking out of the sky without proper thought of how something like that impacts us. You know, black people, we are far from being freed from the effects of slavery, because America consistently practiced some shape or form of oppression since we've been in this country of black people. Whether you call it slavery, we had black codes, we had Jim Crow, we had the fight for the right to vote during the Civil Rights Movement, we had to deal with the drug epidemic, mass incarceration, redlining, everything. And these were consistent government policies that this is years after. You know, states' rights, where states had the right to make different laws concerning black people than they did for white people. You know, we weren't compensated when they rioted against us, destroyed our businesses, destroyed our homes. You know, there are black people now that are trying to fight for land that their ancestors bought, but, you know, whites ran them out of the land, and we auctioned the land, you know? So it's not a setback based on desire. It's a setback based on racist policies, violence, death, killing, murder. This is how they got here. It wasn't by design. It wasn't something done by our choice. You think Emmett Till's mother wanted him dead? And the woman actually stated that she didn't tell the truth, that she lied. He didn't whistle at her. So he lost his life based on a lie. You know, he was massacred, brutally massacred based on somebody's lie. You know, you can't make statements to sponsor the folly and the hatred that has been practiced against our people for so long. So I'll say this about Kanye. I know he's on this thing of him having the right to say what he needs to say, but you got to stay in your lane. You are a great producer. You are a great rapper. But if you are not an historian, if you are not a sociologist, an economist, or an intellect on matters like this, then sometimes you have to reserve your opinion for people who really know what time it is. Right. You know, obviously you don't. You know, you don't. And then now the question goes, because if you're enraptured in the Donald Trump talk, and then now you're all of a sudden, from all of the albums and stuff you said prior, now you're saying stuff like, oh, 400 years seemed like a choice, then people are going to look at you odd, because that's not the statement you made previously. That's not your art. That's not the stuff you express, you know, when all of the albums that you came out with talking about, you know, pro-blackness and stuff like that. You know, the government gives us AIDS. You said that. You know what I mean? Right. That's what you said in your lyrics. Right. So here's part of the problem that I have with his support of Trump. You know, this is the problem I have with anybody that supports Trump, and it's not to say that I'm too keen on people that support any side of the aisle. You know, our struggle is greater than conservative and liberal, right, Democrat and Republican. You know, so when you're talking about I support Trump because Trump is my boy, you know, you support somebody that if he has bad policies, why are you supporting him? You know, if that's your friend, then you have to tell him where he's going wrong with some of his policies. If you're not saying that, then you're not his friend. Right. If you're not saying that, you really can't say that you're a supporter. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. I'm not supporting your rhetoric. I'm not supporting your talk. I'm not going to support your mistakes. You know, even as you being my leader and my president, even if I'm in your same party, I'm not going to support your failures and your mistakes and the things that you shouldn't be doing and the things that you can do better. Right. You know? And that's what we don't understand. You know, we scared because he's the man on the throne right now, or, you know, he's the new Pharaoh, that people are scared to put him in check. You got to put people in check. You know? If people make mistakes, regardless of who they are, they need to be put in check. Leaders are no different. You know, so he's here, he has to have this image, stuff like that. But, you know, if he needs to be put in check, he needs to be put in check. If you see these policies that are happening that are wrong, nobody said you have to dislike him as a person. You know what I mean? But if he's doing things and saying things that are improper, you know, what do you have to say about him calling countries, like African countries, S-hole countries? You know? What's your opinion on that? You know? Because these countries are like that because countries like America exploited these countries and raped these countries, giving them loans, the IMF loans and all types of stuff like that, that bleeds the country dry. You know? And then they depose the people that take the loan and the country is left in shambles. You know? Right. You got to think about everything before you say it. So it's all aspects of it. So, you know, you have to think about this person and how they moving, the stuff that they saying, you know, his prejudice against Mexicans, because he said some inflammatory things about Mexicans. You know, you have to think about it all, you know, and you can't just, like, I support him because he's the underdog. It's not the reason why you give him support. And if you really want to support him, if you really his friend, then you make a public statement about what he's doing wrong, the same way you made a public statement about what you felt Jay was doing wrong.
George Bush.
George Bush. You got up and said, George Bush doesn't like black people. That was a public statement because you felt that. And George Bush never made any statement like 45 made. George Bush, you made a statement against what you felt was bad policy concerning George Bush. That's why a lot of us didn't like George Bush, because of policy, right? Same thing. So if you see that you cool with him, you have to check his policy, because you got to know by now that none of his policies have been correct. Right. None of his policies has been correct. You know, he looks at a rally with skinheads and tries to make it seem like, oh, both sides were inflammatory, both sides of this, whatever the case may be. If you're so strong about both sides, then shut it down. Shut everybody down. Right. Like, no, we're not having this because I feel like it'll instigate too much violence, and he can make a federal order, have troops right there, and shut everybody down. Right? Right? Because they've done that before. Because, oh, we initially wanted you to have the right to freely protest and march, whatever, but it got violent and people died. So we're shutting you down from now on, because until we figure out a way to stop the violence. Right. That's what it is. Right. He could do that if he wanted to. Chooses not to. That's his choice. Right. Kanye, what's your opinion about that? What's your opinion about that? Right. you know, you got to. If you're going to be a man, you got to be a man all the way. You can't be a man halfway. You know what I mean? So if you're going to say that's your friend and that's your boy, then check your boy.
Right. What, do you think that rappers, well, I know back in the days rappers were very supportive of Donald Trump. Double XL wrote an online article about the lyrics that rappers didn't support or almost like idolizing Donald Trump.
Right.
Do you think that rappers are hypocritical for now because the rap community is so against Donald Trump? Like, for example, in Nas's album, forgot which one this was, but I'm looking at the article. Money is my B word, B-I-T-C-H.
Right.
He says, niggas always expect to see us two together, stable, the best couple they seen since Trump and Marlon Maple, right? That's almost something that's not speaking negative about him.
Right.
Jeezy, 2011, Trump is the name of the song. Richest nigga in my hood, call me Donald Trump, the type of nigga to count my money while I smoke a blunt. Raekwon, 1995, incarcerated Scarfaces. Poisonous Sting, which thumps up and acts chumps. Race a heavy generator, but yo, guess who's the black Donald Trump? Quotable, lyrics.
Right.
What do you think of it? It's many more lyrics here. What do you think? Do you think that rappers are sort of hypocritical now because at one point they were supporting Donald Trump and now all of a sudden it's like...
Nah, because if you understand the nature of hip-hop, first is lyricism, right? And it's metaphors. So, you mentioning Trump because Trump is a financial icon, is a whole different category than you mention him as a political person, a political leader. So, you're just saying it because it rhymes, so it's catchy, not so much because you actually even know who Trump is, or that Trump will shake your hand. It's a punchline, you know what I mean? So that's how rap is, There's some people that call themselves other things, there was a whole era where everything was Luciano, whatever the case may be, Gambino, whatever the case may be. And, we not Italians. People call themselves Gotti or whatever the case may be. We're not Italians, but you're naming yourself after Italian gangsters. That's hip-hop. You know what I mean? Some people call themselves Black Bill Gates, stuff like that. You know what I mean? So it's going to continue because that's part of the flashy imagery of showing how much money you have. It's all vain, you know what I mean? But you want to choose the guys that you are at the top of their game, to make these metaphors with, so that it can look like something, it can feel like something. So I don't take that intensely seriously. I don't think they look at Donald Trump as somebody that they guide in their politics and stuff like that. And, even when we talk about men like Tuki, and other black gangsters that were around, you know what I mean? I think it's the same thing, you know what I mean? You're not too much mimicking their life and the stuff that they did wrong, but you just look at them, you're making metaphors about them because they're iconic figures, you know what I mean? And that's hip-hop, man. You're a lyricist, you show your lyrical prowess when you're talking. You're going to make metaphors about people who are iconic, you know what I mean? So that's Donald Trump. Trump is iconic, you know what I mean? So that's what it is, yeah.
In conclusion of it all, what is your message for the Israelite community in general?
So let me give two messages. Either we cooperate or we are going to die. I think that people undermine the need for us to be together and for us to be able to work together. Now, I clearly understand that there's some people through time and energy and testimony and the test of time show that, they're not ready to work with you, or they're not ready to work in general, But there's enough people that need to know that we have to operate, we have to work, and we have to leave the filth behind. We have to leave the treachery behind. We have to leave the disloyalty behind, you know, because we can't work with those things involved. You know, that's like, you know, putting pork in a kosher pot. You know, the clean person, the righteous person ain't going to eat that. Right. You know, so we have to take those things away. Secondly, I would like to say that we have to fulfill our mission. I think that, you know, and I always felt this way. You heard me express it in the past. A lot of Israelites are too religious. You know, God didn't give us this Torah for us to stand still. You know, we are a nation. You know, it is supposed to, it was given to a people to activate themselves as a nation, to understand the need for structure, economy, and, you know, civility, you know, judgment, all of those things that come with being a people. You know, so if we don't activate those things, you know, I know we're in America, there's freedom of religion, and we see how religion is practiced, you know, but we are not like that. You know, our job is to be a nation. Our job is to be independent. Our job is to be progressive. Our job is to be, to have a high spiritual morality, you know, and it's hard. We have a lot of negative influences around us that we all are falling victim to. You know, we could do a better job at it, but we're not going to do it separately. We're going to do this together.
Right. You say you had a second one.
No, I did too.
Oh, you did too. All right. Thank you, my brother.
Thank you.
For this interview. May the Most High God bless you.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Amen.